Hello everyone, welcome welcome back to my channel. My name is Hannah if you're new here, and today's video is my August reading wrap up for 2024. I read so many books in August, but I'm actually doing a secret reading project that I'm not going to tell you about. So that is 8 books. I read 8 books for that secret project that I will not be discussing in this video. However, if you go onto my Goodreads, you can see all of the books that I read. So might give you a little hint as to what this secret project might be. We have 11 books to discuss that were brand new to me, and I also finished some rereads, so let's get into it. I did want to mention very quickly that I reread Rhythm of War. This is the 4th book in the Stormlight Archive. I finished my reread of the first 4 Stormlight Archive books plus the novellas that go in between. And to be honest, I finished Rhythm of War and I wanted to read The Way of Kings again. I was like distraught that I had to be done in this world, which is a testament to Brandon Sanderson and his writing. And I'm like, I have to wait until December until the book 5. But I love Rhythm of War. Unpopular opinion, I guess. I think this is one of his better books in the Stormlight Archive. I think, for me personally, it goes Words of Radiance is my favorite, and then Rhythm of War, and then The Way of Kings, and then Oathbringer, which is not how most people feel, but that's how I feel. I love this series. I loved my reread. Can't wait for book 5 in December. The first and only sci-fi book we're going to talk about today is Ghost Station by S.A. Barnes. This is a sci-fi horror, and all I have to say about this is, what was this? This was not scary. This was not horrifying. This wasn't even fun to read. I only finished it because I was feeling sick in bed, and I was just lying there in my bed listening to this audiobook going, when is it gonna get good? And normally I DNF books like that, but I just really did not have a good time with this. There was no atmosphere. There was no intrigue. This is about a psychologist who joins this expedition with a bunch of like military personnel, and she's like an upper crust member of their society, and so they shun her both for being kind of an outsider as well as class differences. And I was just like, I don't care. I didn't care for the entirety of this book. Typically I don't rate books 1 star. The 1-star books that I rate are objectively bad, but specifically like they're offensive. Like there's something genuinely wrong with them, and I like think these are books that should be avoided because they're racist or whatever it may be. And this one I gave 1 star because of how disappointed and how much I did not enjoy the reading experience of it. Moving on from that low, let's talk about me finishing the Memoirs of Lady Trent series. So that means I read books 3, 4, and 5, which are The Voyage of the Basilisk, In the Labyrinth of Drakes, and Within the Sanctuary of Wings. I finished this series. I loved it. I had such a good time. I would say individually, I think the 3rd book in the series, The Voyage of the Basilisk, is by far the best of the 5 books in this series, so I gave that one 4.5. But every other installment in the series, I've given 4 stars. This is a almost cozy historical fantasy following Lady Trent and her life and her big scientific discoveries as it pertains to the natural history of dragons. And this was delightful. This was fun. There's like a teeny hint of romance, teeny tiny. And I had a great time. I thought these were delightful. In the fantasy romance sphere, I read more Grace Draven, because I'm going to read everything she's ever written and everything she writes as long as I can get my hands on the book. And so I finished the Fallen Empire series with Dragon Unleashed and Raven Unveiled. So this is like a trilogy, and I finished books 2 and 3. And I liked Dragon Unveiled more than the first book in this series, which is Phoenix Unbound. Dragon Unveiled is a dragon shifter romance. He can shift into a dragon, and the reason okay, this is about a healer on a caravan and a dragon shifter, and they kind of cross paths because her uncle stumbles across an artifact that the dragon shifter is looking for and needs to like complete his dragon transformation, and so there's tension there, obviously. But I really like this one because the main character's mother is disabled and like developmentally delayed, and the dragon man is so sweet to her and just loving and treating her with such respect that is like super hot to me. Like, obviously, like, being kind to disabled people is wonderful, and he just like genuinely respects her mother, and I just think that that's so sweet, and really enjoyed the plot of the book as well. So I gave this one 4.5 out of 5 stars. And then Raven Unveiled, this is an assassin, and his he basically hired this woman as a nanny, and she betrayed him in the second book in the series, and so he's like hunting her down because he's like, you gotta apologize to my daughter because you betrayed my whole family. And so I did not like this one as much. This is like a 3-star. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but I wasn't enjoying the plot of this one as much. And their dynamic was just fine. Oh, I actually gave this one 2.5 out of 5 stars. Like, this one was mediocre at best. And then I read Throne of the Fallen by Carrie Mansicalco. This is a historical fantasy romance, which is apparently a spin-off series from her YA series. I didn't know that. But this is about, like, there's like the human kingdom and then the Fae kingdom, and there are layers or like different kingdoms in the Fae kingdom, and we're following one of the princes of Hell, and he is Envy, Prince of Envy, and so his like powers come from like jealousy and envy and stuff like that. And then we're following this woman who is a painter in the human world, and romance and plot ensue. I don't think this is a bad book, but I don't think it was particularly groundbreaking for me personally. I think this is pretty smutty. If you're looking for something a little bit more, having more intimate scenes, I don't know, I just didn't really, this is essentially, like, the plot of this book is essentially a MacGuffin chase. You gotta find the magical artifact, you gotta find the next clue, and I just thought that it was clumsily executed, like the game portion of the plot, to the point where I didn't care, and the romance I thought was just okay. It was fine. This was the definition of a 3-star. Like, this was fine. It was perfectly enjoyable. I don't know if I will continue in the series. I just thought everything about it was fine, which isn't great, but it was okay. And then we have the fantasy category to close out this video. The very 3.5 stars. The next 4 books were all 3.5 stars. So first, let's talk about Running Close to the Wind by Alexander Rowland. I loved their previous work, A Taste of Golden Iron, and I even read A Conspiracy of Truths. They're right here, these 2 books by this author, and really, really enjoyed it. This their latest release is like a pirate fantasy, and we're basically following kind of a bumbling idiot. Not a bumbling idiot. He's kind of like a silly goose. He's a very silly main character, and he like steals something and runs to his ex-boyfriend, who is ex-partner, I should say. They go by they, them. His ex-partner is the captain of a pirate ship, and so our main character runs to his ex, and is like, help me, and also here's this stolen thing that you can, you know, try and sell the black market. Also, don't kill me. So this is kind of like an adventure story masked as a romance because you think there's gonna be more romantic development between the main character and the captain of the vessel. And there is a third person that comes into the dynamic, who is very interesting and very sexy, and they're like kind of fighting over him, which is kind of fun, but there isn't enough romantic development for me personally. This is a really raunchy book in the way that the characters talk. The number of innuendos, the sex jokes are just rampant. And I thought that was hilarious. Like, I think this is a really genuinely funny book. But for how raunchy this book is, there's very little romance and there's no smut. So this is a really confusing book to me because it has such a strange balance of elements. It's more of an adventure story, so it's not really a romance either. So I had a hard time with this one. I was like, so that's why I gave it a 3.5. Like, I liked it and I had a fun time with the adventure, but like, I'm trying to think like who would like this, like who would love this book, because it's like, if you want smut, this isn't for you, but it's super raunchy, so like people who don't want smut in their romance would probably be uncomfortable by reading this too. So I'm like, and I don't think there was enough romantic development between the characters to classify this as like a capital R romance. So it's not a romance, it's not an erotica, but it's raunchy. Like, I just don't know. This one kind of befuddles me. Then we have The Dead Cattail Assassins by P. Djeli Clark. This is again a 3.5, nothing wrong with it. This is a novella about this assassin who is in fact dead and she cannot remember her life. That's part of the assassin contract, is when she dies, she like forfeits her memories of her life. And the whole plot kicks off when she is sent to kill someone and she recognizes this person from her past, which should be impossible. So that kind of kicks off the adventure that we have going on. And again, I think this was actually quite good. I had a good time. This is kind of violent. We got some assassins and some fight scenes, which is kind of fun. This has a little bit of a sci fantasy element to it. I don't want to give too much away, but I liked the blend of genres here. I liked the world building, but it's very hard to get an emotional response from me personally with a novella. Like it's very challenging. And so this one was fun. This was a good time, but I wasn't like emotionally invested in our main character or like the plot necessarily. And so I just thought this was good, but it's not gonna like stick with me forever. You know what I mean? Then we have Mirrored Heavens by Rebecca Roanhorse, which is the third book in the Earth and what is it called? I can't remember the series name. The first book is Black Sun, the second is Fevered Star, and the third book is Mirrored Heavens. And this entire series, books 1, 2, and 3, have all been 3.5 stars. Good, but not great. And that kind of remains to be true in the third book. And so I know some people were disappointed in this conclusion, but I wasn't necessarily disappointed. It is like the same level of enjoyment that I had for the previous two books. So I wasn't personally disappointed. I just think this isn't a groundbreaking conclusion or like an emotional gut punch fantasy, if you know what I mean. Like, I liked it. I liked the adventure. I liked most of the characters, but I wasn't like super emotionally invested in them or the story and the plot. I think this is a great like 3.5, 4-star fantasy. This is a very consistent series. You know, 3.5 stars is nothing to scoff at. I will say very quickly what the series is about. Sorry, I didn't do that in the beginning. I just had a coughing fit, so excuse me. This series is a fantasy world inspired by pre-colonization, like Central and South America, which is fascinating, incredible. I love the world. And we're following basically our main character, Serapio, who in the beginning of the book, he is basically turned into the avatar of his god, who's the crow god, and he is sent to go to the capital and wreak havoc because his god was overthrown by the sun god. So the crow tribe is trying to like regain power. And the one thing I will say that I like didn't like about this series is the number of point of views. If we were just following like the main cast, I think I would have been more emotionally invested in this plot and this series, but we get so many perspectives of like the villains and like their history, and while interesting, it just took away something, in my opinion, from the main cast of like good guys, you know what I mean? I'm still like die hard for the romance in here. Serapio and Shiala are one of my favorite romantic pairings of all time. I love them and I love them still. So yeah, I do recommend this series, but I would go in with those expectations. Like, this is a good time, but you're not gonna like, in my opinion, you're not gonna get like that emotional gut punch at the end. For at least that's how I feel about it. Last but not least, we have The Black Tongue Thief by Christopher Buehlman, and I actually read this via audio, and the author is the narrator, which I thought he did an impeccable job with this audiobook. It was an incredible production. He sings the songs in this as well, and I was like, he's got a lovely voice. I had a great time listening to the audiobook of this, and we are following a thief, and he is incredibly indebted to his guild, and they basically force him to go on this quest to pay off his debt, or start paying off his debt. So he's kind of in this like tough situation, and he teams up with this knight who is a handmaiden of the goddess of death, and she's so cool. Her name is Galva, and the two of them team up to go on this quest. And that's kind of all I'll say about like the plot. Again, this was like a 3.5, maybe 3.75. Like, I really liked it in general. But what I will say about this book is that it is very episodic. It's like, we're gonna go to the witch's tower, and then we're gonna go on a ship, and we're on the sea, and there's an adventure on the sea, and then we're gonna go meet this wizard, and then we're gonna go to this town. It's almost like a TV show where each episode is like a different mini quest along the way. And like, as I say that, it's like, well, aren't all books like that? And I'm like, yes, but this one especially feels episodic, and it's almost like the pieces don't necessarily connect fully. Like, yes, you need to go here and then here and then here and then here to continue, but it just felt a little disjointed in the execution. I didn't hate the execution, but it did feel a little bit of a disconnect there, personally. Overall, I had a really good time with this. This is a little violent. I wouldn't call it horror. It's tagged as like fantasy horror. I don't think it's horror. I've read fantasy horror before that's more like horrifying and like actually has some feelings of dread and doom. And like, this book is more lighthearted than that, but there are scenes of violence. So just like trigger warning for that, but no rape, which I really appreciate. And I actually will continue the series. Also, Galva is so cool, and there are gay people. She's a lesbian. Love that for her. Anyway, that was my August wrap up. No new favorites, unfortunately, at least of these books, but I did really enjoy overall the Lady Trent series. And I do recommend both the Lady Trent series as well as the Earth and Sky series by Rebecca Roanhorse. Just have the correct expectations going into it. Anyway, what did you read in August? I would love to know, and leave your comments down below, and I will see you in another video of mine very soon.